Hello internet friends, and welcome to the Legion Beta second pass testing look at the Guardian Druid. And of course, we will be going through the basic spells and things, and then we'll go through the Claws of Ursoc, your artifact unlocks and perks and such, and then we'll go through your talents. And normally tank's the easiest class to go through, or spec to go through during any of this testing. However, they are not without bugs, so please check the video description box below for the entire two-part VOD. The servers went down during part 1, so I had to split the VOD up into 2 different parts. And the bugs that I have found, which there are numerous of them, things that just don't work right now, or there's tooltip errors, or there's things that doesn't show up, but you can check those down below. And additionally, any way you want to support FinalBossTV and keep me doing what I'm doing here and kind of make this my main gig, check the video description box down below. So, basic spellbook stuff. We'll start, of course, with your passives. You have Thick Hide, and I do the same thing with all these Druid videos, is that you have your passive built in if you are, of course, the spec in question here. And then your Affinities. Your Affinities are where you gain and earn other abilities to use for different specs. I have Balance Affinity currently selected here, which does give you the Moonkin form as not a DPS cooldown anymore. The form does not have a cooldown. It is only a cooldown if you are a feral druid. So going into Moonkin form, I've been told probably your best way to actually do damage as a Guardian Druid, but be that as it may, it is stronger than Feral Affinity, but you get the movement speed from Feral Affinity, you gain the healing bonus from Ysera's Gift, and some other heals to do yourself if you take Restoration Affinity, or the Astral Influence, which is 5 more yards on all of your abilities, which is sadly incredibly goofy looking. From like you can stand so far away and auto attack things from 10 plus yards away, but I guess lots of bosses have gigantic hitboxes anyway, so it's fine. It just is very kind of video game oriented-ish. I mean, you have Moonfire default as the Bear Druid. You cannot cast Sunfire when you're not in Moonkin form though, so. Well, those are your affinities. You can choose which one you want to go here. If you want to be a bear cat, or a bear chicken, or a bear tree. I don't know. I don't play Druid anymore, so I have no idea what your choices are here, but these are your Affinity Talents here. And these sort of determine a little bit more of your, not playstyle choices, but a little bit more flavor you have being your Druid, of course. But you have Thick Hide default because you are a bear. So, Nature's Guardian, which recently was tuned down in this latest patch, is increasing your maximum health and healing received by a percentage. Also increases your attack power by the same amount now. It was double, so I was actually going to be gaining 22% of health and healing received. Right now, they have reduced that by half to bring the Guardian Druid not so ridiculously overscaling with 11 million HP during testing, because it was a little ridiculous. So they are a little bit harder to heal, and they don't heal themselves for as much, and they have a little bit less HP. Hopefully that'll balance them out, because it's a little bit ridiculous where they were. Woo boy! But they were going to be way too strong if they didn't let that go, so it's a good thing they have addressed that issue. Gore is also your passive, where casting Swipe, Thrash, and Moonfire. Casting, not on the dot ticks, but casting these 3 abilities has a 50% chance to reset the cooldown on Mangle and cause it to generate 4 additional rage. So, rage generation, as you are still a rage-oriented tank, is kind of a big deal, obviously. So, generation rage through your Mangle hits. Thrash also generates rage, if you might have noticed that there. So Mangle generates 6 rage by default. The cooldown is reduced by haste. 10-yard range right now due to the Astral Influence, so it looks kind of goofy, but it's whatever. It has physical damage. It will deal 20% additional damage against bleeding targets. And there, of course, there's Thrash, which is sitting right there, which generates 4 rage. Cooldown also reduced by haste. 13-yard range. It is a butt cleave. It's an AoE, basically. It hits everything around you. That is baseline. It deals bleed damage, so it ignores armor, initial damage, as well as the dot bleed damage, which stacks up to 3 times. And generates rage each time, of course, you spam it. It always generates rage regardless of when you use it or not. I'm going to spend some rage real quick here. Additionally, you have Swipe, which is kind of your filler ability, which also is a butt cleave. It is a AoE around the bear. Swipe just causes physical damage. That's it. It has a range. No cooldown, does damage. So you generate rage with Mangle and Thrash. You reset by casting Moonfire, Swipe, and Thrash to reset the Mangle hit. And then, of course, you have Maul, which is your ability to dump excess rage and not rage cap yourself, which will probably only be used if you're not main tanking at the time, due to the fact that Maul is, like, low damage, which, of course, can be tuned up. But currently, it is just, like, not really worth it. And it's kind of like, I don't know, we were told that it's not terrible to sit at high rage, but if you don't want to, like, use it on something, because you generate it pretty quickly. The rotation is actually pretty fast. The haste scaling on the Bear Druid is really ridiculous, because the cooldowns are so quick in comparison to other classes I've seen, but that is the main rotation you're seeing right there. Now, what do you spend your rage on? I'm glad you asked. So, rage is spent on two primary abilities here. The Mark of Ursal, which costs 45 rage and reduces the magic damage taken by 30% for 6 seconds. There's currently no animation after you pop this up. Nothing happens. Additionally, you can spend it on Iron Fur, which also was recently toned down from where it used to be. Iron Fur still costs 45 rage, but it's a 75% increase in your armor and an 8-second duration. That's from something else with the duration. That's from a talent. 6 seconds by default is both Iron Fur and Mark of Ursal. Sorry. A couple of passive talents at play here, which we'll go over, of course, later on. But you can stack this multiple times. It is very possible, depending on a certain talent build, to have 3 up at once. But the third one you cast is very much about to fall off, like, in a second. It's very easy to put 2 Iron Furs up at one period of time. Currently, however, the armor update on your character panel here is not reflecting the armor change, which I'm assuming will be fixed when they actually finish the rest of this panel out. But your armor does go up, but your actual physical damage reduction is not increased at all on this, so I'm sure they will fix that in due time. But that was the 13k you saw there for just a moment. But physical damage reduction because of armor, and physical damage effects, Iron Fur. For magic damage, Mark of Ursal. Mark of Ursal does not stack, nor does it pandemic. It just refreshes the 6 seconds. Let me double check that actually live. I'm pretty sure it only refreshes back to 6 seconds. It just says Iron Fur does not either. I'm just gonna build up some rage here. Spam and swipe to try to get that reset. Need 90 rage to default to put both of them up. So let's do this. Yeah. Just refreshes it. There's no stacking component at all. But on top of the fact that you have, of course, Mark of Ursal and Thick Hide, that would be 40% less damage taken from magic effects anyway. And there's more magic bonuses you gain later on, which we will go through, of course. You have Remove Corruption, you have your In Combat Resurrection, which I don't think I mentioned when I played Restoration Druid, but you still have your Combat Res as a Druid. Single Target Res, you still have Skull Bash, which is your short range stun, or not stun, but charge, and a spell casting interrupt. You need to take your Wild Charge to get the immobilization effect. Again, you saw you have Moonfire Baseline as your ranged pulling tool, as well as your On Cast to reset your Mangle right there. Wow. What else we got here? We got Prowl, so you can go into kitty cat form and be in stealth. You have Survival Instincts. It does not cost anything, but it is your 4-minute recharge, 2 max charges, 50% less damage taken for also 6 seconds. Everything kind of lasts for 6 seconds for the Bear Druid, like default. That's like your window of time that you can always plan on. Your little shield wall effect is 6 seconds. Mark of Ursal, 6 seconds. Iron Fur, 6 seconds. On top of that, of course, you have Teleport Moonglade. This does take you to the Moon Grove, I believe. Oh, the Dream Grove, sorry. If you do the, once you finish your Class Hall quest. And other things to spend rage on is going to be your last form of active mitigation, or I guess reactive mitigation, is Frenzied Regen, costs 10. Recharge time is reduced by haste, where you heal yourself for 40% of all the damage taken in the last 5 seconds over the next 3 seconds, or a minimum of 5% of your max HP. And again, because of your mastery being nerfed recently, it's going to be a little bit weaker to keep yourself alive with just Frenzied Regen. But 10 Rage is basically you can always use it. Mostly you're limited by the recharge system. But the haste benefit of the Guardian Druid is actually pretty big. Like, haste is not terrible. Mastery is also, like, really important. Crit, is meh. It's just damage, really. Versatility is also pretty damn good. It gives you more damage, also gives you more healing done by your own self-healing, of course. And then, of course, decreases all damage you are intaking. So I think crit might be the weakest stat for the bear, with Mastery Haste being really good, because you also gain you gain everything. You gain Rage by auto-attacking, which apparently it's like, I was told in chat that Ariel figured out that it's like 7 point something Rage per auto-attack. It's like not 7, and it's also not 8. So each swing you might gain 7, or you might gain 8, just because of the decimal places behind the number. But that's based on auto-attacks. So the faster you auto-attack, the more passive rage generation you do gain. So, and of course, the more haste you have, the more often you can use Mangle. The more often you can use Thrash. The more often you'll be able to have up, oh my goodness, Frenzied Regens. So haste scaling is pretty good on the bear. It's pretty good. But obviously Mastery is going to be incredibly important as well, because you want more HP, more healing received, and more attack power for everything. Because, you know, who doesn't like attack power, right? Rah. But that's basically the main core of everything, other than like a little bit more utility stuff. Incapacitating Roar is still here, but it's a little bit different. It's an AoE gouge, basically. And that's what an incapacitating effect is. It breaks on damage, kind of like a root. But a gouge effect, like what rogues have, is you can gouge someone and they won't do anything, but dots or direct damage will, of course, break it. But however, this could be used to interrupt spellcasters. And because it's a 15-yard range right here, you can actually make it even larger with a talent. So it's kind of bonkers that you can get this gigantic AoE gouge. You can't see the debuffs on their model, because debuffs right now doesn't matter as much for this build, but I went over this in the Restoration Druid video, that debuffs are only showing up on the V-bars, not the actual character display portraits in this build. They are currently broken. There's the Barkskin grayness. Actually, you know what? The Barkskin effect is broken in this build. Maybe it only works with your artifact. I'll have to check on your artifact when I actually have it equipped in a moment. And then there is your Iron Fur little debuff there. The little swirly thing is kind of, it's okay, I guess. It's better that you actually have something to visibly see, whereas Mark of Ursal does nothing. Just all of a sudden you Mark of the Wild yourself. Okay, great. Frenzied Regen has the rejuvenation effect tied to it. Survival Instincts looks like Shield Wall, just with the bear paws. Here's your little charge. Skull Bash, as it were. There's your Stampeding Roar, which is your other raid utility. Now, the raid utility argument for me in a long period of time was always a little bit annoying due to the fact that, like, your raid utility is like, you're a good tank, right? That's your raid utility, is you're a good tank. You know how to position bosses, you don't die all the time. You utilize your active and preventative mitigation when you need to. Your cooldowns are on point. You move the boss properly, you know what I mean? But everyone has to have this, you know, this utility thing and this argument. But for sake of this argument, you have Stampeding Roar, which by default is 2-minute cooldown. Let's say Wild Roar, which is a 15-yard range with Astral Influence, 10 yards by default, which is also another reason why Astral Influence is also really good, because Stampeding Roar gets even better. Your artifact has a buff for it, and so does a talent. But it's a 60% sprint for 8 seconds. And of course, the 15-yard area around you, 10-yard passive. If you don't have the Astral Influence, again. So it's a huge benefit, of course, right? At this point, it's kind of like, okay, melee and my off tank can get use of this, right? Just wait until we get later on. This is... Stampeding Roar is so good for the Bear Druid. It is ridiculously good. But that is the core. Everything else you're seeing here, of course, is a talent we'll go over later. You still have Entangling Roots for whatever reason. I guess you need Entangling Roots to be able to utilize Mass Entanglement, I suppose. But that's about it. Healing Touch is your only way to heal yourself, like, out of combat, I guess. It does break you out of bear form. You can't actually use it while shapeshifted. You have to break out of bear form, then you can cast it on yourself. But it's not... It's okay. It's, like, pretty strong, I guess, for the Bear Druid, but not too great. Alright, let's get a little nitty-gritty here with the Claws of Ursoc, which are so much easier to say than the stupid twig that Restoration Druids are using. Am I right, bears? I'm sorry. All Druids are awesome. I used to play them for 2 years. But damn, that staff's name is weird. So here is the druid form you get for being a Worgen. Let's see if Barkskin works. Huh, they must have broken it in this build. Barkskin had a cool effect before. Maybe they're trying to fix it because it wasn't what they wanted to have. Now you just like turn like a shade of brown, but you don't have the cool little effect on you anymore. I'm sure they'll fix it in a new build. That's fine. So the Claws of Ursoc. Ursoc, brother of Ursol, and guardian of the Furbog tribes, bearer of the strength of the forest itself. Azeroth will need you. If you do not stand ready, the world may fall. You gain the Rage of the Sleeper ability, which is kind of, it's great baseline. It gets stronger later on. So it's a 90-second cooldown where you unleash the Rage of Ursoc for 20 seconds, preventing 33% of all damage you take, which is that is an absorb. A preventing of damage is an absorb. You also reflect back a large amount of damage, nature damage, to your attackers when they attack you. I will show this off right now, but I have to jump ahead, and we'll go around, of course, everything else, but because we have the artifact fully unlocked on this server, I have to show you Embrace of the Nightmare. So this is when Rage of the Sleeper is active, you also deal 33% increased damage, gain 33% increased leech, and are immune to all effects that cause loss of control of your character. So it's 33% damage prevention. It is 33% more damage done. It is 33% leech gain, which we tested this. It doesn't just give you 33% leech. You have to have leech, and then it's multiplicative on that amount of leech you have. Which is strange that there is a buff that influences a tertiary random stat. But if you get it, it gets even stronger with this thing. But it could also be bugged right now. Again, bug reports down below in the video description box. So Rage of the Sleeper is a ton of damage, but the damage reflection you're seeing there, the nature damage back, that actually gets buffed by the 33% damage, obviously. So the damage you're going to see in the chat log here in a moment is that's why it's buffed so high. And 68,000 damage is being reflected every time this guy hits me in the face. But the Absorb is the 33% damage that is being prevented. And the nature damage being dealt is the Thorn effect. And this is the graphical effect, of course. The crazy red, like, Super Saiyan bear hair, I guess, is the effect you will get when you are under the effect of Rage of the Sleeper. So, on an overall point, while we transition here to the actual artifact talents, the Iron Fur and Mark of Ursol bonuses, coupled with your passive healing, that you can active, of course, active healing, both, with Frenzied Regen, is that you will probably always want to FR and then put up some damage reduction. Like you would FR and then Survival Instincts. You would FR and then stack 2 Iron Furs, right? Because you want to be healing for a larger amount of damage over the last 5 seconds you just took, and then prevent and reduce incoming amounts of damage while your heal is helping your healers, of course, and just the overall effect of you being healed up. If you put 2 Frenzied Regens back, you basically get 2 effects of the same amount of healing, just over the same duration. So you'll actually see 2 hots ticking, you'll get 6 ticks. It's 1 per second for 3 seconds. But you won't, like, it just doubles the effect of the snapshot it looks at. So that's all it does for SR. For SR? For Frenzied Regen? A lot of talking today. A lot of testing, a lot of recording. All right. Your other artifact perks here. You start right here with Rage of the Sleeper. You move on to getting Iron Claws, which is 7% extra armor. You gain Vicious Bite, which is 15% more damage on Mangle. You have Wild Flesh, which is 15% more healing done by Frenzied Regen. So it'll take the 40% damage done, that'll give you a value, and then you get 15% more of that value. It doesn't make the snapshotting of how much you're looking for any larger, just the amount of healing that snapshot finds in the last 5 seconds, or based on your HP, of course. Bear Hug is 5% higher chance to trigger gore. Triggle? To trigger gore. To trigger the gore passive, so it goes from 15% to 20% chance to reset the cooldown on Mangle. This will actually work if Mangle is available to you. It just buffs Mangle. As you saw right there, I just procced on the first cast of Moonfire. So you don't have to have Mangle on cooldown to reset it. It can reset or buff itself when it is up. But I'm pretty sure there's like a PPM system in here, or RPPM system involved in that, because it can't proc over and over and over and over and over again. You've got Perpetual Spring, which increases the reduces the cooldown, of Bark Skin by 10 seconds. Currently, this is bugged. Doesn't do anything. Bark Skin is still a 90-second cooldown. Just not working properly. That's fine. And the graphic doesn't work either, so they're obviously working on something in the back end. Reinforced Fur is 15% additional armor from Iron Fur. This is multiplicative, even though it says additional. By an additional 15%, should be additive. It is not. It is a multiplicative bonus on the base amount of 75%, giving you 86.3% armor. It's still a lot of extra armor, but it should be 90% if it's additive, but it's not. It's multiplicative, so there you have it. But it's just stronger Iron Fur, which is good. Sharpened Instincts is Survival Instincts, reduces all damage you take by an additional 10%. So SI then goes to 60% damage. The max 8 charge thing you see there is obviously a weird tooltip bug. Now, I'm not sure how that happens, because you can't get that many charges even through like set bonuses or legendary, so it's just a bug. I reported it. Ursoc's Endurance increases the duration of Bark Skin, Savage Defense, which is gone, tooltip error, Iron Fur, and Mark of Ursol by 1.5 seconds. So remember I said everything is like 6 seconds now? With Ursoc's Endurance, you gain a 13.5 Bark Skin, 7.5 Iron Fur, and 7.5 Mark of Ursol. Survival, Savage Defense was in the earlier build. They just haven't removed it from the tooltip yet. Roar of the Crowd is Stampeding Roar, increases your movement speed by an additional 5% per ally hit, up to a maximum of 25. Take a small pause here for a moment. Get it? There, bear pause? I'm sorry. Roar of the Crowd is insane. By default, with Astral Influence, Stampeding Roar is 15 yards. We're going to jump aside real quick here. So, you know what Wild Charge does? You know what Displacer Beast does? Those are both the same thing. You've seen them before. They haven't changed at all, really. They are the extra yardage on Displacer Beast because of Astral Influence. Wild Charge has the exact same thing. Certain things have a further range on them due to the fact that you can Wild Charge from further because of Astral Influence and Balance Affinity. But Guttural Roars increases the radius of Stampeding Roar by 200%. Incapacitating Roar by 100%, that's your AoE gouge, and reduces the cooldown of Stampeding Roar by 50%. So, if you look there, 1 minute cooldown, yeah. Wait, 45 yards? Why is that? It's because Astral Influence increases the base amount of range on the ability. So then when it gets multiplied by 200%, so it goes from 10 to 20 to 40, and then plus 5. So it's ridiculous that it's a raid-wide roar, and then back over to Roar of the Crowd. With it being 45 yards, you're basically always going to get the 25% additional movement speed. So it's 85%, 8-second sprint for more or less your entire raid group. It is on a 1 minute cooldown. It is really strong. So if Bear Druids ever wanted to feel more like it had a utility ability, then other than just being a good tank, there it is. Because holy frack. It's crazy. Crazy, 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 ridiculous nonsense. Oh my goodness gracious, Great Balls of Fire. So it does count for all the guys I had around me, all the NPCs. So this is the full sprint right there. Good gracious. Anyway, back to the artifact. Holy crap. Mauler is 10% increased critical strike chance on Maul, which is like, okay. After talking to you about Roar of the Crowd and Guttural Roars and Stampeding Roar, you're like, oh, and then you're like, okay. Bestial Fortitude is 10% increased stamina, which I will now Slide over here to the Claws of Ursoc. All artifacts have the per perk unlocked. You gain stamina. They did nerf this in the last build. It is 0.75% additional stamina per perk unlocked. It was 1%. So they did nerf overall HP scaling. Obviously, the Guardian Druid does gain Mastery for HP and Bestial Fortitude for more HP. I mean, I only got 2.4 million right now. Before the Mastery nerf, I had close to 3 million HP in crappy 806 gear. So they did slow down the HP scaling a little bit, but obviously Bear Druids are supposed to be this giant wall of armor and fur. So there is your additional stamina right there, which is now a lot more beneficial because your Mastery is a little bit weaker. Jagged Claws is 15% additional bleed damage, which is basically just affecting Thrash. Unless you go cat form, and you have cat form bleeds up. Bloody Paws is a talent that I've heard love and hate for. So, Thrash reduces the movement speed of its targets by 50% for 6 seconds. Sometimes, though, you don't want to slow things. Not all the time do you want a built-in permanent snare. But that's what Bloody Paws is. So, I don't know how they're going to change this or affect it at all, but there it is. And you have to want to take it because you have to power up your artifact all the way to unlock the Paragoning system and, of course, get extra stamina. So, I don't know. The buffer thing right there on the top right corner, which is always up right now, damn it. And it actually stays up for any time you respec. It's kind of broken right now. Is Gory Fur, sorry. Bloody, gory, heavy fur, whatever. Gory Fur. Which Mangle has a chance to reduce the rage cost of your next Iron Fur or Mark of Ursol by 50%. So, this works off of Gore. So the more chances you have to reset Gore, the more chances you have to keep up Gory Fur, which the more rage you can save or stack into Iron Fur, or Mark of Ursol. Because they're cheaper. 22 rage. Obviously, only works on 1. But weaving Mangles now in between, or making sure you are, and not wasting a Gory Fur proc is going to be a little bit of a skill cap there. And, of course, just like a little priority list you have to make sure yourself. Or you can save the proc and then double Iron Fur, build, and then Iron Fur again. And that's how you almost get 3 in a row. Almost. It's not a science. Like, it doesn't always happen. But it is a possibility to do during a little bit of a talent cooldown you may have remembered from live, which will go... Well, I'll show Incarnation off when we get there, but it's very possible to stack quite a few Iron Furs. So real quick here, we can do this, we can do this, we can hit a Mangle, and we can do this. So there's your 3 in a row. Again, the tooltip doesn't update, but that's how you get 3 in a row. It's very possible to do that, but obviously not all the time, and you need a full rage bar to utilize it. But if you know you're about to tank swap into a boss and you have full rage and a Gory Fur proc, might as well put a bajillion extra percentage of armor, and then you taunt swap in, take less damage for the first, 7-8 seconds or so. Help your healers out on the transitionary point. Pretty good. Additionally, you have Adaptive Fur, which is damage. That's any type of magic damage, Fel, Arcane, Frost, whatever. Has a chance to grant you a 10% damage reduction for 15 seconds against that type of element that caused the damage. Just a passive extra mitigation against magic damage because the Bear Druid, even though you have a lot of HP, you have no defense against magic damage other than Thick Hide, Adaptive Fur, Versatility passive, and of course if you have Mark of Ursol's up. But to help with some of the burstiness of magic damage that can happen to tanks, normally... Unless you're like a DK or a Demon Hunter, magic damage can be kind of scary. So, the bursty nature of it anyway. But that'll help you a little bit, of course, for that. Could be really good against like dot damage. It's like fire dots or like nature dots. This will probably proc and then affect the entire dot. It'll last for 15 seconds. So, pretty good stuff right there. Well, that's the Claws of Ursoc, which are some pretty good bonuses. Mauler's kind of like, meh. And Bloody Paws is kind of like, meh. But everything else is pretty straightforward, pretty good. Talent time. We already went for your 30s. We already went for your 45s. Your 60s, as you can see here, are flashing. I wanted to show off the little, like, flashing effect when you don't have a talent taken. I guess the Honor talent thing does the same thing too on the top row there. But then you hover over, you have like the little blue hover when you're on the talent tier. But Mighty Bash is your stun, 10-yard range with Astral Influence, of course. Then you have Mass Entanglement or Typhoon, which when you're a Bear Druid and you cast Typhoon, looks like you're sneezing. Yeah. Well, it's your utilitier, I suppose. But you know what these all do. We already went over your Affinities, we already went over these, so let's go over the other 4 tiers here. Whew, boy. Pulverize, as you see that's talented right now, is here. And when I go over Pulverize, I will also be jumping down to what I also have talented right now, which is called Rend and Tear. So Pulverize is an instant 10-yard range because of Astral Influence. Does physical damage, but eats 2 stacks of Thrash. It will also then buff the Druid to take 15% reduced damage by 15% for 20 seconds. But again, you get to eat these stacks of Thrash. So you eat it. It does damage. There, you gain your Pulverize effect, which is a passive for 50% damage reduction all the time. Then, of course, you have to restack your Thrashes. The damage is kind of neutral, because you're not going to be doing this all the time, right? Like, you'll Pulverize close to the end of the duration, then you'll re-Thrash to go to 2 immediately. Not a huge deal. However, when you bring in this talent down here called Rend and Tear, is that while in bear form, Thrash will also increase the damage dealt to the target and reduce your damage taken from the target by 2% per application of Thrash. And when you first look at these, you're like, okay, well, that's kind of not really good to take with Pulverize, but it also is, at the same time, on a fight where they have lots of adds that die really quickly. You're not going to be able to actually stack up a whole bunch of Thrash on them. However, like take Scorpiron, for example. You can have 3 stacks of Thrash on Scorpiron. You can Pulverize him, and then when adds come in, you can then, of course, Thrash them. Or if you're tank swapping because of the tank debuff, like Crystalline Laser thing, you can Pulverize the boss, choose those stacks, leave those stacks, on him, the 1 or whatever. You gain the Pulverize buff, but then you also gain the ability to then use Rend and Tears on the adds to increase your damage done to them and reduce the damage they do to you. Additionally, on a council-type fight, you could do what I'm about to do here. You can put up a whole bunch of stacks of this. You can put up your Thrash stacks, right? And what you can do is you can actually say, this is not the boss. Pulverize this guy, but then keep your stacks on the boss. So you're doing more damage to the boss mob. It's doing 6% less damage to you. And then, of course, when you stack your Pulverize back up again, Pulverize it off of a different target. You have the options to keep up 3 stacks on, like, a council-y, cleavy fight, and then just Pulverize it off of a mob that is less priority or that you're not even tanking. Right? So there's benefits to Rend and Tear and Pulverize, even though on a single target fight, it might be a little bit awkward due to the fact that you keep losing your benefit to gain this benefit, but then during the time that you restack, waiting for Pulverize to cool down for 20 seconds, utilize its whole effect duration, you can still gain Rend and Tear. So, okay. Your other talents in 15 are Brambles, which I'm going to show off here in a moment, but I'm going to talk about Blood Frenzy, because Blood Frenzy Rend and Tear is also a thing as well. So, look, this is a cooldown-oriented spell. Blood Frenzy is that Thrash also generates 2 rage each time it deals damage over time while at 3 stacks. So if you don't want to use Pulverize, you could take Rend and Tear, because it works on, stacking up to 3 times as well for the bidding benefit, and take Blood Frenzy, and then just have a lot of extra rage influx. And more rage means more Iron Furs, more Mark of Ursals, always having rage for frenzied regen, even more rage to dump some mauls for extra damage. So Blood Frenzy is a good passive. It's just extra rage generation, by default stacking up your Thrash to 3. Whereas Brambles, the tooltip is currently broken, but Sharp Brambles protect you, absorbing and reflecting up to an amount based on your attack power of damage each hit all the time. And then when you activate Bark Skin, you'll also deal damage around you every 1 second for 13.5 seconds. Now, I'll show you off the Absorb effect here. So the Absorb effect will stack with your Rage of the Sleeper. So right now you're seeing 42, 49. If I hit Rage of the Sleeper real quick here, which also has an Absorb built in, you got 3,800 Absorb per hit right now. 38, 36 on that hit, 39, 23, 45. Like, you have tons of absorb happening here. And Brambles is a good passive, but it also gives you a little bit of AoE damage and threat because you can do this. It looks kind of ridiculous, but it's also pretty good. It's also not too bad. I don't know. It's ridiculous. That last tick is because of the 0.5 seconds. So it's passive damage reduction. It's a on-use damage and AoE damage bonus. It's a single target thing too. You could just use it whenever you wanted to, honestly. You don't have to use it in an AoE situation at all. It can be a single target damage ability. It's just kind of goofy because you just like blurp, 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 right? But it's pretty good. But if you want to use Pulverize or you don't need Blood Frenzy's Rage, you can take Brambles and have the benefits of that. So we have Soul of the Forest, which is Mangle, generates 5 more Rage and deals 50% more damage. Stronger Mangle. You're going to reset Mangle a lot because of Gore. So you're going to have just... If you proc Gore now, Mangle will actually generate, I believe it's 15? Yeah, 15 Rage when it procs. 11 by default, 15 with Gore proc because of the 4 extra. So, it's great. Good passive. On the flip side of this, real quick, we're going to show off Galactic Guardian, which is just really fun. So Galactic Guardian is at your damage. All damage you deal, dots, whatever. It's a 5% chance to trigger a free automatic Moonfire on that target. And when it occurs, it'll give your next Moonfire a buff, so it generates 15 Rage when used. So I'm just putting up my dots right now. There's the Moonfire right there. There's the Rage generating Moonfire right there. So it's kind of like, it's extra random damage. It's extra random Rage generation. It's also extra cleave damage, I suppose. There's another Moonfire. There's another Moonfire. Laser Bear. Laser Bear! That's all it does. But your other option in that tier, other than Soul of the Forest, giving Mangle more damage and generation of Rage, or your damage having a chance to give you Moonfires randomly with more, which are obviously all on hit damage, and then the extra Rage from casting Moonfire, is Guardian of Ursoc, Incarnation. And Incarnation is 30-second duration, as all the Incarnations are. It's an improved bear form that reduces the cooldown of all melee damage abilities and Growl to 1.5 seconds, and causes Mangle to hit 3 targets. So it's your only real DPS cooldown until you actually unlock Embrace of the Nightmare, if you want to look at it as a DPS cooldown. So Incarnation, of course, you can shapeshift in and out for the duration. You keep the improved bear form. But why this is like pretty ridiculous is because of the gore component is also really important. And then remember, gory fur. So the more you can spam Mangle, the more you can proc gory fur, which means the cheaper your Iron Fur and your Mark of Ursols are. So it's a huge bonus to your survivability and, of course, your damage, because you can just spam this. Like, literally, all you're going to do is thrash and mangle. That's all you're going to do, most likely, because you're going to want to stack up thrash, and then once you're stacking thrash, just spam that mangle. And then spam that Iron Fur, and spam that Iron Fur, and spam that Iron Fur, right? Like, that's all it does. Spam that Iron Fur, 4 stacks, oh boy, and it goes 3 and 2. So it is both a huge DPS cooldown in a way that you can just spam Thrash and Mangle to get your Thrash stacks up immediately, generate more Rage, spam Mangle, do more Mangle damage, proc more Gory Fur to put up more defensive cooldowns. So it's huge, but it is a 3-minute cooldown. So whereas Galactic Guardian and Soul of the Forest are always going to happen. So that's a big choice you're making in your tier 75s. You've been seeing Guardian of Loon pop up a couple times. This is also more Mangle synergy. Mangle increases the duration of your next Iron Fur or Mark of Ursol by 2 seconds, or the healing of your next Frenzied Regeneration by 20%. So if you take Guardian of Loon with Guardian of Ursoc through Incarnation, like, you're going to have so much survivability because your heals are stronger, your Iron Fur and your Mark of Ursol last longer, You can stack more iron furs because you can just generate so much rage much faster. It's a little bonkers. These two right here, craziness. Your options in 90 tiers are not that fantastic, I think. Earth Warden. Every 6 seconds, you gain a charge of Earth Warden, which reduces the damage of the next auto attack you take by 30%. Earth Warden may have 3 charges. So it always be regenerating during combat. So basically every 3 boss autos, one of those, because usually bosses have like a 2-second swing speed, 2 to 2.5 unless they are dual-wield boss. This just reduces auto attack damage. And it's like, it's fine. But it doesn't have like any interactivity whatsoever. So if you want to take a cruise control passive to reduce auto attack damage, then by all means, it'll proc right here, and then it'll go away on the next auto attack. It's fine. In a way, though, because you're reducing your auto attacks being taken, obviously it will reduce the amount of effective healing you gain from Frenzied Regen, because those auto attacks that you took in the last 5 seconds were weaker. Well, at least one of them was. Earth Warden helps for like taunt swapping, because when you taunt swap, you can stack 2 Iron Furs, have 3 charges of Earth Warden, have a really smooth taunt swap, no crazy burst nonsense, but Guardian of Elune is so much more beneficial because not only is you're going to be spamming Mangle anyway because of Gore and Gory Fur, it just gives you such more of a control over your windows of time, because this just makes your, where is it? You damn thing. Your Mark of Ursol will last 9.5 seconds, and Iron Fur will last 9.5 seconds. It's huge. It's so beneficial that it just makes Earth Warden look kind of like, meh. And you even have Survival of the Fittest, which reduces the cooldown on Bark Skin and SI by 50%. So again, Brambles, Survival of the Fittest is a lot of fun, because you get a 45-second cooldown Bark Skin. It should be 35 seconds. Actually, it should be... yeah, 35 seconds, I think. Or 30? If the artifact perk was working. And Barkskin lasts for 13.5 seconds with your artifact perk, so... more Barkskins, and SI charges of a 2-minute recharge now. And it's 60% damage reduction because of your artifact perk, so... like, Survival of the Fittest and Guardian of Elune have so much more potential. More cooldowns, more passive damage reduction through your rotational active mitigation. And Earth Warden is just super passive and boring, but who knows? Maybe there's a boss that might need this kind of thing, like a Butcher-style boss or a Patchwork-style boss, but I doubt it. Alright, I'm going to go to Bristling Fur next, and then we'll do Lunar Beam last, gets a cooldown. A longer one, anyway. Bristling Fur has gone through some iterations, because if you remember, Bristling Fur was kind of, like, real bad. It was just like a very short, very strong shield wall. On live right now, I think, which is just like, okay, whatever. Now, you bristle your fur, and you cause all attacks against you to generate rage for 8 seconds. The rage generated is using the old formula of, like, taking damage generates rage. So, it's like, I've seen 1 to, like, 5 rage generated. But it's on every attack against you for the next 8 seconds. So, it's not very good against single targets, which I'll show you here. But it might be incredibly good. Watch my rage. I'm going to turn away so I'm not auto-attacking. So it's like, there's 4, there's 3, there's 4, there's 3. It's really not... stop hitting my butt. It's really not that good against single targets. But imagining Bristling Fur when you pull all of the Scorpions on Scorpiron, or grab a bunch of ads on Emerald Nightmare, the Dragons of Nightmare, for example. Or you grab the Blood Beasts on Tichondrius, right? You snap this, you get a bunch of extra rage... and then you get a bunch of extra cooldowns through Mark of Ursol, Tybing, or Iron Fur. Which again, Guardian of Elune, Bristling Fur, pretty good for like snap active mitigation against ad fights. Your other choice in this tier is pretty, but maybe only good for, I don't know, it might be your... because Rend and Tear is going to be good like all the time, basically. Even if you even make Pulverize. But Lunar Beam... which is bugged currently with Astral Presence, is a AoE plus a heal. The heal only works if you are standing in the circle, though. So if I stand right here, This beam will hit all of these target dummies because it has a 10-yard radius. It's 5 yards by default. It doesn't say that on the tooltip. But it'll hit all these dummies for a bunch of damage. Over 8 seconds, it hits every 1 second for 8 seconds for the amount of damage it says in total. And then the total amount of healing will also be applied as well. So here's the damage. It pops up every 1 second for a small amount of damage to them and healing to me. But you have to be standing in that circle to gain the benefit of the healing effect that is done by the lunar beam. If you walk outside that circle, no healing. Sad bear. But if it's like a patchwork fight, it's another healing cooldown. Like you can couple lunar beam with a frenzied regen to heal yourself for more. You can put up a survival instincts lunar beam, so you're have a huge damage reduction while you also heal yourself. It's more self-sustained. It's also some damage. It's flavorful in the way that like the whole cross-pollination of different effects on the fact that you have Moonfire, right? Like the whole druid fantasy of like kind of intermingling the different aspects or schools of druids is there. But Rend and Tear is good. Lunar Beam could be situationally powerful. The problem with Lunar Beam is it's a really long cooldown. 90 seconds is like not... It's not fantastic. I almost wonder if the heal should be over 5 seconds and maybe a little weaker, but it'll have a 1 minute cooldown so you can use it more frequently. Because at 90 seconds, it's kind of not up very often, you know? But those are your choices for the bear. I particularly enjoy the Galactic Guardian, Guardian of Elune, and Brambles build. I Lunar Beam for fun, or Rend and Tear. It doesn't really matter on that front, but I like the extra Moonfires and the like extra button to hit, because you already have the Mangle proc, right, with Gore. And then the procs, of course, with paying attention to Gory Fur, for example. But it feels cool to have all those extra little Moonfires popping down, but that's the Bear Druid. I think outside of probably Earth Warden being your snore festiest of talents, those are your options. You have a lot of things for cleave, a lot of things for single target. You have some great artifact perks there. So let me know in the comments below what you think of the, if I can spell dance, what you think of the Guardian Druid down below. If you made it through this entire video, hit that like button. Helps me out a great deal, of course. Subscribe if you want to see more videos in the future. Leave me your best bear puns. I'm sure they will be unbearable. That's all I got for you. So check out the video description box down below for my bug report and my notes and the VODs if you want to watch all of my testing I have done on the Barely Bear Druid, as well as other ways to support the channel here for FinalBossTV on YouTube and Twitch. And I will see you all in the next Legion testing video.